Just because it's normal doesn't mean it's natural. Yeah, there we go. What is normal and what is natural? Recently, I went on a bit of a camping adventure. Some of the men are here and they brought their families along. And we were staying on a campsite, and it was the first time my son, Bo, had been away from his mum, Katerina, my wife. And as a family, it got to a certain time of night, and we all just knew, being his first night away from mum and away from the boob actually, that he's probably going to battle. It would be outside his norm. But we had to make it natural for him. And we all just knew there was no communication. It was just like, we're all going to bed. And I have a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, a 7-year-old, and Bo, who is 3. But we all knew without communication we had to all go in the tent. No one objected to it. The 13-year-old, 11-year-old said, no, I want to stay up tonight. We all just knew without communication that we had to get him to sleep. And that was about interdependence, really, the true understanding of what interdependence is. And that for me is a social template, really. And we have all come from a system that drives real independence, that makes sense, rather than our interdependence. And our interdependence brings in that language of equality, really, where if we all understood our own unique gifts and talents, what that would bring to the table of interdependence. I just need you to close your eyes for a moment. Just going to introduce you to something from a very good breathwork coach. His name's Kieran, and he's sitting in the front row here. And it's a little microdose of LSD. So if you close your eyes for a moment, we're going to come round and give you a little microdose of LSD. You ready? It's light, slow, deep breath. So first of all, just relaxing your lower abdomen, your chest. Relax your base, being your base of support. Relax your face. And we're just going to guide a gentle inhale up through the nose. Super relaxed, light, slow, deep. LSD. And then let that breath go. And that breath out can be a ah, or it can be a ooh, or it can be whatever it needs to be. And then take another inhale, nice and soft, gentle. And then let that breath go. And just stay in that gentle rhythm of breath for me, just for a moment. Light, slow, deep. All the way in, all the way out. Okay, let's take a deep breath together all the way in. And a big long and one more, all the way in. And you can open your eyes. That was for me, really. Whenever I have to come up on stage, I do a little bit of down regulation breath because it drops me into what would be my normal state, you know. Where does that come from, that little up regulation before we have to speak? For me, it came in an environment that's called school. And I was pulled up in front of what was an assembly. There might have been 300 kids in there, without any skills, without any damn regulation practices of how to breathe, how to speak in front of others. And I went bright red, couldn't get my words out, and it felt like I was being humiliated in front of 300 people with no skill. So when I then had to then come to public speaking or getting behind a mic or going on radio, or I was on BBC Breakfast and Virgin Radio, all these things, I'd find myself with that little up-regulation before I went in. So is it natural? Is that natural? Or have we just normalized that? And could we not all find our own voice? Do we not all wild, connected, empowered beings that have a voice? Why would it be that when we're faced with a mic or we have to speak to people, we would find ourselves in that little up-regulated state of being nervous and we have to unpack stuff? where does it enter? And for me, it was in that school environment. And we've been holding experiences like Christabel mentioned. It's called the 100 Human Experience. And we ask others in the circle, over 100 people, maybe to introduce themselves, and you can see them gulping, and that can be like 50-something-year-old men, that suddenly, faced with it, they can't find their voice. Yet we are these wild, connected, empowered beings. We were once wild, we find ourselves having to re-wild. We were once connected, we find ourselves having to reconnect. We were once empowered, powerful beings. You think when we enter the world, the power that we have when we come in, yet we have to re-empower ourselves in a way, or wear T-shirts that state we're empowered beings. We were once equal, we're fighting for equality. And what does it mean to be equal again? We're all equal, right? It's when we try to compete, I guess, in that sense. There's a great poem here. Can I read it to you? You ready? They caught all the wild children and put them in zoos. They made them do sums and wear sensible shoes. They put them to bed at all the wrong time of day and made them sit still when they wanted to play. They scrubbed them with soap and they made them eat peas. They made them behave and say pardon and please. They took all their wisdom and wildness away. That's why there are none in the forest today. Does that resonate? Yeah. What's that environment again? So I bash the schools a lot, really, but there's also the home environment, and that's where behaviours get normalised. In our early years, we observe our adult population, and that creates the templates of our behaviours. And this is where we have to question what is normal and what is natural. Because just because it is normal doesn't mean it's natural. So if we observe our own behaviours, how many of them are natural? And it states in here even wearing comfortable shoes, Is it natural to wear shoes? Could we question that? It's normal, but then we can question what's the shape of a shoe? I'm a barefoot endurance athlete, and it might mean I wear minimalist footwear as well, but it's the shape of a foot. And that's the very foundation of the way that we move and traverse through a landscape. And the shape of our foot is so important for nourishing the rest of the behaviours of all our joints throughout our body, the ankle joint, the knee joint, the hip joint, and how we stand. So for me, I was born with club feet. So I had a metal bar with a brace that would prise my feet open and get me to what would be perceived as a normal shape of a foot. Many years later, at the age of 43, I decided to run from Land's End to John O'Groats completely barefoot. Part of that was to raise awareness for human potential, but it was also for a planetary, environmental, sustainability message. And I saw that it was socially extreme to be running barefoot. Although it's natural, it was perceived as socially extreme. So we have these two understandings of what is biologically normal today is often perceived as socially extreme. I don't have any furniture in my home perceived as socially extreme, but it's biologically normal. And there's only a small population on the planet, really, that use chairs versus the rest of the population that don't. So it depends where we are as well, what we perceive as normal. And it is all about perception, really. How many Tonys, is Jeff here? This is my friend Jeff's work. How many Tonys are here? How many Tony Riddles are here? There's a Q&A involved in this. Kieran, how many Tony Riddles are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I guess 30. Maybe 40. Because you all have a different perception of me. Yeah? And your perception has been shaped by what you've normalised. And what you've normalised has been brought in by your early templates, really. It informs your decisions even of today. Medicine or experiences like this are great because they're an opportunity to step outside what can be even limiting beliefs or behaviours and immerse ourselves in different practices and experiences that help deconstruct and dismantle some of those templates. And the reason that's important for me, there's a study that I put in the book, and I discuss this a lot and I speak to this a lot, It's from a book called Free to Learn. Kieran's now reading Free to Learn. And it's Peter Gray, and he asked 10 leading anthropologists, what does childhood look like in nature? So they look at 3 independent tribes, different geographic locations, and they discover that they're the most well-adjusted, well-rounded individuals they'd met. Yeah, what were once perceived as savages, indigenous cultures, but actually now seeing the children as being well-adjusted, well-rounded individuals they'd ever met. So what did it look like? What did childhood look like? Well, all the way from infancy through to teenage years, the children just play, and they play at being everything. The plants, the rocks, the animals, but they also learn everything about their adult population, how it is to be the adult. So they're learning to track, to forage, to build shelter, to build fire, but they're learning it through an act of play, a playful state of mind that then informs them to be an adult. It gives them all the templates that they need to be the adult. So we could then argue, are the adults then also in a state of play? If they just walk straight into adulthood with all the tools and the modalities they need to be adults. Why is it such an important study? It's an important study because we realise then that the earlier years are observing us and our behaviours and playing them out. So if we really want to bring change, cliche, we have to be the change. But we have to start normalising nature, our very behaviours. So we have physical, social, spiritual needs, let's say. So let's think of food as a need. And let's look at nature versus what we've normalised for food. And we can bring movement into this because I'm from a movement background. And to move and forage and find food would mean being really sympathetic to the landscape and understanding it. Moving, traversing through that landscape with a multitude of movements that really enable us to express our physicality. Soft, gentle touches to the earth, barefoot, microbiome through the feet, senses open through that experience, nourishing all our posture and our movement practice. Think of what pulling and pushing must look like. I have to climb, I have to carry, I maybe have to throw, I maybe have to run, crawl, all these different movement practices. That's not looking or alerting ourselves to the senses that are awake or the microbiome, the introduction of that. That's just the movement alone. Then we move to farming, say 10,000 years ago or 6,000 in the UK. What did that movement practice look like? It suddenly become more specialised, right? So we become specialised. And what did pulling and pushing look like? Johnny, what did pushing and pulling look like? Let's say, take our minds back 6,000 years ago as a farmer, what would it be? Yeah, so it's quite specialised, but there's still pulling and pushing practices versus what might be throwing, climbing, lifting. Yeah. Now we fast forward to what I call the zoo, the human zoo. What does it look like? Yeah, so that level of convenience we have, what does that lead to? I firstly lose that amazing ability, capacity to move well through a landscape. I miss the connection to the earth. I miss the connection to consciousness in that sense. Because if we look to those kids that were studied between those 3 geographic locations, independent tribes, they're playing at everything. The plants, the rocks, the animals, they're immersed in everything. And through play, that experience, I would say that's probably the closest we can get to one consciousness, because you are everything, right? And this, pulling and pushing, is so disconnected from our food systems, our movement systems, our level of connection to everything we have and possess. But we have such a deep connection to this possession, But it's normal for us. So we have to understand, we have to start weighing up what's normal and what's natural. So movement alone, what's natural, what's normal today. So we are a indoor generation, I think we're labelled as, right? 95% of our time indoors, 5% outdoors. So just look at that for a template of what's natural, what's normal. What do we do in that environment? What do we do mainly in those environments that are linear and square and void of sensor information or microbiome? What are we doing? We sit, right? Or we lie down. And then how divorced are we? But it's incredibly convenient. That convenience, unfortunately, leads to discomfort and inconvenience over time. And there's some very important studies that came through there's a barefoot brand called Vivo Barefoot. And they looked at foot behavior and foot strength. So they had participants would wear barefoot footwear for a period of 6 months. And they noticed by returning back to being close to barefoot, as in they're in barefoot footwear, they had a 60% increase in foot strength. In the elderly, a period of 6 months, these are over the age of 60, they had a 40% increase in balance. Okay? So 40% increase in balance, 60% foot strength. First of all, we should be questioning, oh my God, why would I put kids in something that would take away 60% of their foot strength, that would lead to, that foot strength leads to nourishing those movement capacity again, the way we walk, the way we run, the way we jump. But then in the elderly, if you're over the age of 65 and you fall over and you break a hip, you are 40% higher risk of dying in that year. Yeah. So first of all, we're robbing ourselves of our potential, perhaps. And I know all about that because it took me a period of time to go from wearing compromised footwear, or, as the poem suggests, sensible shoes, to then going barefoot and then discovering my potential that I can run these extraordinary distances and become an ultra-endurance athlete. You know, so what are we robbing people of by wearing footwear that's compromising their strength? And what are we doing to then, in our elder years, of putting ourselves in a real position of vulnerability? It's convenient and it's comfort, you know, but we have to now, where we are today, with our level of convenience and comfort, we have to go in search of it, discomfort and inconvenience, to remain fulfilled even. And fulfillment really is about needs, right? Physical needs, social needs, spiritual needs. Physical needs, movement is one. Name me another physical need. What do we have? Yep, human connection, contact, skin on skin contact. What else? Food and drink. Sleep. Okay, let's go to sleep, right? Because I haven't had much over the last couple of days. I've been really challenging the sleep studies, because the sleep studies, who's heard we need 8 hours sleep? Yeah. What does it feel like knowing that you don't get 8 hours sleep? Stressful, right? Okay, so it's normal, as we perceive, because we've read the information, we hear it in sleep studies. But if we look to nature, again, because this is nature versus what we perceive as normal today, we can go to 3 independent tribes again, different geographic locations. University of California, there's Siegel, his work. And they looked at the 3 independent tribes to look at how long they're sleeping for, duration of sleep. And no one is sleeping for 8 hours. They sleep for 5.7 to 7.1 hours. Yeah. And they don't have the chronic conditions that we're led to believe we get from not sleeping 8 hours. Yeah. Anyone familiar with those? Like the obesity, diabetes, yeah. Chronic diseases that come in. They don't have those. But they're not sleeping for 8 hours. They're also not sleeping solidly, so they sleep and they wake through the night. Why would they be sleeping and waking through the night? What's different in that environment? Yeah. I mean, just imagine, like, go back, like, cast your minds back, because these are communities that have been living the same way for thousands of years, right? Cast your mind back and think, what were those habitats? What were the environments? You know, because we talk about, you know, ancestral trauma, but don't forget, you know, you're the descendants of the most incredible ancestors that traverse the most insane hostile environments for you to be here today. Just flip that kind of the trauma that we do all go through, that ancestral trauma, and think about the growth that we're here today and what you must actually have within you, what you possess. But the environments were hostile, right? So there's danger. What else is there? What else do we need in those environments? Fire, right? Okay. I held a men's retreat, and we had a fire, and I had 10 pieces of kindling, and I put numbers 1 to 10 on them. And I handed them out, and each one took a stick with a number on it. And it just happened I ended up with number 1. So I was the first one to light the fire. But I said, okay, so that's my stick. I have to tend to that fire for the hour. Then I have to go and seek out number 2 and get number 2 to come to the fire. And number 2 looks after the fire. Went all the way through till 6 a.m. in the morning. Firstly, not one of those guys complained about not having a great sleep. They all loved it because they got to sit by a fire and just be, right, present and just tend to the fire. It was like a rite of passage in a way. But you can't leave a fire. You have to keep looking after the fire. I have bell tents with wood burners in them, and you cannot in the winter, you can't let the wood burner go out because you're in a tent, right? It's not like a house where it contains the heat in the brickwork. So you have to tend to the fire. So you can't be sleeping for 8 hours if you have to look after a fire. So they go to bed at different times, and they're all waking and sleeping at different times, right? So one of the studies shows that over 220 hours when they're looking at their sleep pattern, that they're only all asleep. They're only all asleep together for 20 minutes. Yeah? It's this all the way through. So again, why don't they have the chronic conditions? But there's something very different within the natural sleep environment to what we've normalized in our environment. And let me throw that out. There's a Q&A in this, so I'm flipping it. I'm asking you the questions, right? What's different between our environment and that environment? There's safety, yeah, there's safety in that. What else? Artificial light, boom, first one. They don't have the ability to create sunrise at sunset. Yes, so there's no blue-green spectrums of light that suppress melatonin and challenge our sleep pattern. What else is different? Well, actually, they start work really early, and they probably work for longer hours, you know? And they're very physical in their expression. Sleeping on the ground, right? So they're grounded. Temperature. What else is different? So we have temperature, grounding, lighting, traffic noise, noise pollution, right? Yeah. Air. So air quality, we could call that, right? Yeah. Not looking at the phone before bed, but the phone is like a representation of something else, right? It's like a fire to us, right? So we can understand that. What was happening around the fire? What was that like? What do you think would happen around a fire? Stories, wisdom, yeah? Nourishing, right? An experience that's nurturing, right? Versus what can be really toxic information and upregulating before bed. Because we hear the studies around the blue and green spectrums of light and staring into a bright screen, but we're not really thinking about the information that we're receiving before we're about to go into something that should be quite nourishing for us, as in sleep. So that's just because it's normal doesn't mean it's natural. You know, we can pick sleep, we can pick food, right? We've looked at food, just the physical expression of what that might look like. But then we could go to the food systems, right, of what that's like. Okay, so if you think of foraging, for instance, right, you move again through a landscape, you're at one with the landscape, you're feeling, you're touching, you're smelling, you're priming something else. What is that in that expression? Your digestion, right? And we're in a down-regulated state because we're in nature, and we know nature studies suggest that 20 minutes in a natural environment lowers our heart rate, lowers our blood pressure, which then would prime our digestion because we're down-regulated, which is rest and digest. We're also smelling the foods that prime our digestion. I held a retreat, my first retreat. It was a rewilding retreat. It was on the Isle of Wight, and I invited a mindful coach, and his name was Mindful Martin. Brilliant, right? Well, no, I called him Mindful Martin. His name was Martin. I was like, this is Mindful Martin. And Mindful Martin brought a bag of raisins. And he asked everyone to put a raisin in their hands, and you have a raisin in your hand, and you play with the raisin in your hand, and you move it around, and you feel it, and you touch it, and you're allowed to get it closer and closer to your nose and your lips. And you're playing with this, and no word of a lie, the raisin ends up about the size of the head of that mic by the time you're done playing with it. But you're salivating, like all your salivary enzymes are up because you're priming your digestion. And you notice all the little details, the wrinkles, everything of this raisin. And by the time you get to eat this raisin, it's the best fucking raisin you've ever eaten in your life. It's probably like the first one as a child. You're raisin! Like that kind of expression. And it's priming digestion. So if you think about that from a foraging perspective, so if you can get out and forage, or if you can make a connection to your food, and when you're eating is to try and bring back that same sense of being downregulated because you're priming your digestion. And what can we do for that? What can we do to get downregulated before we eat? We can breathe. We can microdose on LSD, right? Yeah? Light, slow, deep breathing just before you eat because you'll prime the digestive system, which brings it into natural, right? If we then flip it and see what we've normalized, so who's familiar with this? I lived in London, right, so I was very familiar with this. I would witness people running, crazy running to get to a tube that might be the next one in 2 minutes' time, right? Put themselves at risk. I had one guy ran down the stairs, slipped over, crashed on the ground, and then got up, dusted himself off, arrived, the tube doors are shut and it'd gone off, and the next one arrived in 2 minutes. Totally upregulated, right? Can't judge him, who knows what he was running for, right? But then grabbing food on the way that we have no connection to, that has a long shelf life, comes in a packet, that's normalized, but it's way removed from natural, you know? So what could we be doing? Right? Again, it's to try and get more connection to the food system, but more connected to ourselves and the food, which is to remain downregulated in that experience. Another physical need. What else do we have? Shelter, right? And shelter's a very interesting one. There's who knows how to build a shelter here? Who knows how to locate where to build a shelter? Yeah. What would you be looking for? I would say shelter's possibly it's one of the most important ones on the list, really, because you need safety, right? So we need the shelter first, then we can go and forage, then we can find what we need. So the fact we've totally removed from, well, a small number of people know how to build a shelter, right? But yet, what do we spend most of our income on? Shelter. What do we sacrifice most of the other needs for? So we find ourselves, I can't get the foods I want or afford the foods I want because I'm paying so much for shelter. I can't provide this because I'm paying so much for shelter. So we're in there's a little trap there for us, right? But it's understanding simple practices like building shelter ticks a box that makes us internally more fulfilled. Social needs, this is where those templates come in. So again, how we perceive those environments. And for me, this has been the most important pillar for me to hone because I am a parent to 4 kids and they're unschooled. So they haven't gone through the schooling environment that really normalizes the templates, right, of what we perceive socially norm today. We can really tune into what's biologically normal with them to an extent within our environment. But that's essentially how we view our physical and spiritual world is through those templates, right, and those observations. And it's very playful again, how we find that experience. I'd like to play a bit today because I love play and expression. So we're going to have a little play with our physicality. We're going to play with human contact. We're going to play with eye-to-eye contact. And we're going to play with the dirt and the grass as well. Because we are nature, right? So it's important to have that expression and reconnect to it. So firstly, we're going to try something around human connection and our social template. Virginia Satir has a model around human contact, and it's 4 hugs for survival, 8 hugs, 4 hugs for survival, 8 hugs for maintenance, and 12 hugs for growth. So I need you to get 12 hugs. Let's start with that. Go. Three, I need more. I need some more. Yeah, that's 4. There we go. How nice to have a hug, right? Good morning. Good morning. 11. Come on. Oh, let's go that way. There we go. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Love that. That's a good one. Have a hug. Come on.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm okay.
Raph, let's have a hug. Hey. Over. Hug. Come on. Nice shirt. I love those. Hey, Kate. Thanks for joining. Okay, how are you feeling after 12 hugs? See how different that is, right? That's just a simple physical need, right? Well, it's a social need, it's a physical need. Is it a spiritual need? Yeah, right? Is it a spiritual need to walk barefoot on the earth? Do we make a connection to the earth that way? Yeah, okay. So they could all be overlapping if you think about it, you know? So the food, again, is it a spiritual connection that we can make to the food system? Yeah? Okay. So how do we get better at digestion again? What can we be doing? LSD, right? If we have to get behind a mic, what can we be doing? LSD. So anyone that's new, we might have to explain that one. So LSD, light, slow, deep. It's breathing. Yeah. I know it's Medicine Festival. Medicine. Great experience. I'm so pleased to be up here, and thank you for the invite. It's beautiful here, isn't it? Yeah? Who feels like they've gone through something or going through something? Yeah. So it's great to, again, to step outside those everyday, right, behaviors, beliefs, not to get trapped into the kind of conditioning of what I would say is that running to the tube, that kind of expression, bringing it back to who we are. And what are we? We are innately wild, connected, empowered beings, right? Remember, it's in our DNA, right? To be these extraordinary beings. Think of the landscapes, the environments that your ancestors had to traverse for you to be here now, right? So to honor them is to actually be here now, right? And the way that we can do that is things like LSD, but improving our physical capabilities, how we move, having a better connection to nature. And what happens when we have a better connection to nature? Yes, 100%. We go back, in my mind, to those kids that are observed, you know, that are everything, the plants, the rocks, the animals. because we're not independent of it. We are if we just get in our heads and we're upregulated, then we're independent of it. But think about interdependence again. That real social need is within that interdependence, that we are all interconnected. It's all one. We are all one, but we're one with everything out there. Yeah? So in that context, we are nature, not separate of it, right? So that's the key, that is to keep in the present, keep those down regulation practices, keep connecting to the soils, keep connecting to your natural capabilities as a being to be part of it. And then the beauty is the younger generations observe that and they see that's what they normalize. They don't normalize the running to the tube and the sipping of the Starbucks on the way, grabbing a croissant, right, in a queue on their phone with their head down. It changes that. If they can see your behavior and how you act and behave is how their templates are formed. So for me, there's always a question of this social norm versus biological norm and weighing things up. So it's a question that I ask. Is it biologically normal? Yeah? Or is it biologically extreme? Because if it's biologically extreme, I have to question why the fuck I'm doing it. Yeah, because it's not good for the human. Yeah, is it good for the planet? So look at personal planetary health, but then also do things and look at and observe your behaviors because you're being observed. So then is it good for the next generations to observe that? You know? This is really nice because they also hear, right? It's not just for observation. So let's all stand up for a moment. Okay, we're going to have a little play with this. And it goes like this. I am an innately wild, connected, empowered being. Now we're going to go up, right? Because we want them to hear us. We want the whole of medicine to hear us, right? I am an innately wild, connected, empowered being. It's a fucking massive festival, okay? Go again. I am an innately wild, connected, empowered being. Okay, now we want, where are we? Near Reading? Right, we want Reading to hear. You ready? I am. An innately wild, connected, empowered being. Okay, next one's for the UK. Go. Okay, now for the whole world to hear it. Can we go together? I am an innately wild, connected, empowered being. Yes, you are. Okay, we're going to go out on the grass quickly and form a circle. Because I don't have long, right? I got like 10 minutes, yeah? Yeah, 10 minutes. Let's get on the grass. Okay, so now you got to make your way to the other side of the circle, and we're going to do a little hip bump with as many hips as you can find. Go. Woo! 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 Okay, we're going to bring a bit of sound in on the next one. So you find a hip and you go, woohoo. Okay, so it might sound like this. It might go, woohoo, woohoo, go. Woohoo, 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 woohoo. How's that feel? Oh, amazing, mate. Okay. Kate and I are going to walk to one another like this. I need to. Real drama in the. Beautiful. Feels nice, huh? Ah. Play is also one of the needs. Yes? So we're playing now, right? Adults playing. Okay. Love. Who's looking for love? Yeah. So we're looking for love. We like a bit of love, right? So you're going to walk towards your person like this. Like, Kate, come on. We all like to hear this. You look at them directly in the eyes. Eye contact, right? That uncomfortable space that we can have at times. And it's just, you are loved.
You are loved.
Okay, off we go. Deep in the eyes, you are loved. There we go. You are loved. You are loved. You are loved. Ah, you are loved. Hey, brother. You are loved.
You are loved.
There we go. Okay, next one. Just hurry it along with the love. Come on. You are enough. Off you go. That's enough, not an elf. Enough, okay? You are enough. Oh, come on. You are enough. Beautiful. You are enough. Oh, come on.
You are enough.
You are enough. You are enough.
Man.
Nice, huh? Okay, enough with the enoughs already. So, at home in the mirror, because we all need to hear that, right? I am loved, I am enough. But it has to be internal, right? That has to be, rather than looking externally, we have to have that within. In the mirror, in the morning, first thing, you are loved, you are enough. Very powerful practice, right? Just even to look in someone's eyes and just have that eye contact with those words is very powerful. So have that with yourself in the mirror in the morning. I think we're going to do like a group hug. Let's do a group hug. Let's get in the middle because my mic time's up. So we're going to get in here. It's got to be like a proper one, like, you know, like human contact. This is where we're all questioning our morning breath. Okay, let's try this, because I'm incredibly grateful that you all rocked up at 9 a.m. after like Saturday night at a festival. Because I was even questioning it myself. I had to do a bit of breath work before getting here. So, let's try this. I am grateful. But for the whole world to hear, so it's going to be, I am grateful! And again, I am grateful! One more. I am grateful! Yeah! Ah! Thank you. Thank you.
That was fun.
We did it. Whoop. I'm wrapping things up now. So I'm just going to stay with this weighing up the biological normal versus the biological extreme. Just keep that in mind, just to observe your behavior, your beliefs, and get to experiences like this, festivals like this, because it really is an opportunity to step outside the everyday in those normalized templates. And always remember, you are loved, you are enough, but you are wild, connected, empowered beings, right? We carry so much, guilt, shame, everything, but go into that, flip it, that we are these incredible beings. We're all here for a reason, right? What brought us all here? How many of us are on the planet right now? How many? No, is it too many? Or is it that we're all here at this time to reach that level, to bring around shift and change, right? It's extraordinary. We are extraordinary beings. Just keep going into that. It's in your DNA, right? It's a narrative of our evolution to be these extraordinary beings. Finding your voice, finding ways to express yourself, but finding ways to tap into what your unique gifts and talents are. So that when we get together, you're rocking up as your authentic self that understands who you are, so that when we all sit round a table, imagine how powerful that table is. Yeah? There is no one else like you. No one else like you. So you have to find the ways to be you. Really tap into who you are, what your self is. And that's by stepping outside the everyday, challenging your own beliefs and your behaviors to chip away at some of the stuff that we've built around us, the facades, whatever it is, our armor, our masks, to discover who we truly are. And then imagine a world where we all rock up with our own unique gifts and talents, what it would be. Or even imagine the schooling systems of the future. When you arrive, they educate you on what your physical, social, spiritual needs are and nurture your unique gift and talent, rather than fact-finding and recitals of things that really don't enable us to find that. Yeah? That's it from me. Much love. Thank you.